And welcome back to another episode of Creating the New Normal Leadership in a Post-Pandemic World. I'm Ben Baker, and this is Claire Chandler. Claire, you and I were talking off air about the NFL. And you know what? It's not about the NFL itself. You know, it's not, oh my God, we need to talk about 2 hours on the NFL. But I think that the conversation that we had is really pertinent, and I want to get into this. So why don't you tee this thing up and let's have a conversation.
Sure. Happy to be back. Yeah, so we just last weekend saw the NFL draft. I actually didn't watch any of it, but it's interesting because there's normally such fanfare, right? Over the years, it has evolved into this almost Las Vegas spectacle. In fact, I think this year it was supposed to be in Vegas. And so everyone got creative and they did it remotely, and they were responsible in terms of social distancing and, all of that. But it occurs to me that, all of the professional sports organizations are kind of in the same boat as any other business, right? They're not sure if their season is going to be postponed, if it is going to be shortened, if it's going to be changed to the point where teams are, playing in front of virtual audiences instead of live audiences. And I'm not concerned that the NFL as an organization is going to run out of money.
No.
But I think the fact that the draft went on anyway, which we knew it would, serves as a good example for businesses, because they don't know when the season will start. They don't know what changes will need to happen in this new normal, in this new world that we're in right now. But they acted as if. They continue to lead as if. Because if they had said, well, we will wait and see, and then we will adjust the draft accordingly, they would be behind the curve. And what they said was, it doesn't matter if our season is postponed, if it's shortened, if it's changed, X, Y, Z. What doesn't change is our mission, and our mission is to win the Super Bowl. Every single team, their mission is to win the Super Bowl. So how do we go about this draft the way we would have gone about it had there not been a COVID-19 crisis? How do we build the best team, surround them with the best coaches who have the best chemistry to collaborate effectively, right? To command performance on the field and discipline in the locker room, and put together a strategy that positions us best to win the Super Bowl. And so, I think it's just a great example for any business leaders, that the show went on in a modified form because they remained focused on the mission.
Well, and that's interesting because it's about understanding what your long-term purpose is. What is your long-term goals? What are you trying to achieve? And there's so many businesses, I'm hearing this every day. They say, well, we'll see, see where we are in 60 days. Call us in 60 days. Call us in 90 days. Call us in 120 days. And instead of sitting there going, okay, in 60, 90, 120 days, the world is going to open up again. It's eventually it's going to happen. It's going to happen. We're going to go back to business. Business is not going to be normal. It's going to change. It's going to, we're going to have to do different things. We all understand that. But it's the businesses that are saying, you know what, now it's quiet now. Why don't we jump on a call for an hour? Why don't we jump on a call for 2 hours? Why don't we get the team together nationally on a Zoom chat and talk about what do we do? How do we implement? How do we move forward once everything opens up? Because it's not like you can just flip a switch. It's not like the economy is just going to flip a switch and then all of a sudden, people are going to say, okay, nobody was working, now everybody's working, go. It's just not going to happen that way. There's going to be a gradual, shift up. People are going to have to ramp up. Different industries are going to be relying on each other. So everybody has to, get in line and get ready for their supply chain to be ready so they can be ready. And the more we can be talking about that, the more we can be looking at, okay, what's next? What do we need to do? We need to make sure that it's may not be business as normal, but we're planning for the future. We're planning for, the eventuality that this will go on and life will go on. And I think that that's really an important place to talk about today for business and leadership.
Yeah, no question. And I think to your point, the biggest change that this has brought about is not around the why of a business. And I think a lot of businesses need to heed that message, that their why is still a point on the horizon that they need to focus on. What has fundamentally changed and has been impacted by COVID-19 is the how.
Yes.
Right? It is every client that I talk to, every business that I interact with, they have said the same thing. We took a hit, or we're sort of challenged by cash flow right now, and that's a short-term issue. But on the bright side, what this has forced us to do is get very efficient. We have figured out that we can get our work done without a lot of the steps that we thought were necessary, and now we've concluded they were extraneous. And to your point about ramping up in a way that is logical, in a way that is strategic, in a way that is methodical versus haphazard, it's the how that is really taking the biggest impact. And to your point, in terms of things have slowed down and things are a bit quieter, that should be a main focus of businesses is, okay, we know where we want to get to long term. There were certain strategies we had developed prior to these, these forces that have acted upon us. What about the how? Should we alter? Should we augment? Should we enhance? But let's focus on that right now, because the why is still where we should be headed.
All right. I agree with this. And I look at, the whole crisis is almost like my July and August. July and August, very little happens. Everybody goes away on vacation. Everybody's mindset changes. Everybody wants to be on the golf course or on the tennis course or out at the beach or whatever. And very few people want to be thinking about business. But I find that the leaders actually take the time at that point in time to actually have those lunches, to have those meetings, to do the strategy, to figure out where they're going to be. So when September 1 rolls around, or after Labor Day or whenever it is, they're ready. They're hitting the ground running. The inventory's in house, the people are in place, the training's been done, the efficiencies are there. So they're ready to go. So when everybody else is thinking about, oh, wait a second, I got to start thinking about work again, they're not spending the next 6 or 8 weeks trying to ramp up. They're already ramped up. They're already ready to go. And I think now, to your point, now is the time to be looking at policies, procedures, personnel, purpose, all the things that drive your business, and sit there and say, are we as effective as we could be? Is there, to your point, is there extraneous stuff? Is there stuff that you're looking at going, why do we do this? Why are we actually continuing to do this? Maybe there's a more effective way, a better way, a more efficient way, even a more cost-effective way of doing things. And now is a time when we actually have some time, we can actually breathe to take the time and evaluate, because if we keep doing what we've always done, we're going to be in trouble. It's not going to work. What we've always done in the past, what we did up to December 31st, 2019 is not going to work in September 1, 2020. It's just not going to work. Your marketing has to change, your philosophy has to change, your way you evaluate, way you interact with your customers, everything is going to change. And it may only be slightly. It may just be a slight shift to the left or a slight shift to the right, but it's going to change. And we all need to be thinking about, how has our world been impacted? And what do we need to do to put ourselves in the best position to move forward? And, I'm with you 100%.
And it's so funny, you use the phrase, if we do what we've always done, normally the end of that sentence is, we will get what we've always gotten. That's out the window. Because if we go back to the old normal, that place is gone. That way to interact with your marketplace and your employees and your customers and your prospective customers, that ground has permanently shifted out from under our feet. So the end of that sentence has to change now, right? And it's interesting, as you're talking, I'm thinking through, you're talking in terms of how do we make sure that when the doors open up again and when there are no barriers to interaction, how can we put things in place today and strip out extraneous so that our people hit the ground running? And I'm reminded of, that's the same question we ask ourselves when we are onboarding new people.
True.
And we usually use that phrase, how do we flatten their curve toward full productivity? And so it's interesting that that phrase, flatten the curve, is so, prevalent today when we're talking about the curve of the impact of the virus. But that's really what we're talking about. Businesses, smart businesses who are still having one fixed gaze at the horizon, right, and keeping mindful of their why, and are critically looking at the how, really need to undertake a systematic enterprise-wide re-onboarding of their entire organization.
True.
Because it's not just going to be, okay, everybody back to where you were. There's no going back. It is now, okay, in preparation for the doors opening up, this is what we will be about. The why has not changed, the how has changed, and here's what we're doing about it.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about onboarding, because I was just listening to a podcast over the weekend, and the podcast had Grant Cardone on the show, and it was talking about failure. And he said, well, what's one of your most recent failures? He says, you know what? We brought on 45 or 50 new people in January and had to let 42 of them go. And the biggest reason we had to let them go is we had no way to onboard them. We had no way to bring them into the culture. We had no way to get them, acclimatized to what we do, how we do it, our purpose, our values, and bring them into the organization properly, because we didn't have the way to bring them together. And it was unfair to try to do this over a Zoom situation or a remote situation. They just couldn't get part of the culture. So they wanted to sit there and say, look, when this thing is over, we want to have you back. We absolutely do. But we can't bring you on board successfully now. And they had to let these people go. And a lot of it was the fact of realizing that they couldn't support them. They just couldn't support them from an onboarding point of view. And I found that fascinating. But you're right. We are going to have to re-onboard every single employee, because we're going to have to evaluate, has our purpose changed? Has our vision changed? Has our mission and vision and values changed? Has the direction that we're going as a company changed? Has what we do changed? Has how we engage with our customers changed? Has how we communicate with our customers changed? And if any of those things, the answer is yes, we need to sit back and take our employees back to ground zero and say, look, this is where we were. This is now where we are. And this is where we're going. And be able to bring them back into this position of understanding that this is the new brand story. This is, here's the light at the end of the tunnel. Here's the hill that we're going to climb over. But you know what? Where we were 6 months ago versus where we are today has fundamentally changed. And you all need to understand that, because if they don't understand that, employees are going to go back and they're going to start saying, well, we always did this way. Well, no, that's not going to work anymore. So that's going to take effective communication. That's going to take effective leadership. That's going to take, better vision, understanding what is different about your company and being able to articulate it effectively, both internally and externally.
Yeah, agreed. And what a great opportunity for business leaders who choose to see it that way, right? And the ones who are going to be at the forefront, not just competitively in the market, but as truly employers of choice, are going to be those leaders who do everything you just said and paint the picture of the new normal, right? Maybe the why hasn't changed, but we kind of got away from that because we were getting so good at firefighting. And now COVID-19 is the ultimate, sweeping forest fire, right? But the one,
it's an inferno.
It's right. It's a towering inferno. The why we're going to bring back into focus, but leaders have this opportunity that they must seize to say, this is who we are going to be now, because their employees are starving for that.
Yeah.
They want to know that you're going to take care of them during this time of crisis, but they also want to know that you have your act together and you have a plan for longer term, because a lot of people are already out of a job. A lot of others may follow suit, and employees don't want to just stay employed. They want to stay inspired. They want to feel like what they do matters. So employees are watching and they're listening, and they're seeing how their leaders are stepping up with a unifying vision of, this is how we collectively will get through this, and this is who we will become in the future.
And that's going to be the difference between being able to hire and rehire great talent and being the company that's going to be sitting there starving for talent. Because, as you said, employees are now looking to sit there and say, okay, I want to align myself with a company with purpose. I want a company that I believe is going to survive the next 3 to 5 years. I want to be with someone where I think that I'm going to matter and I can believe in what their vision is and what they're going to be doing. And if you can't articulate that as a company, if you can't articulate, how you've changed and where your value is and what your mission is and your vision is, you're not going to be able to bring on board the talent that you need in order to get you there. And all of a sudden, you're going to go from being, say, even if you were a successful company, you're going to go from being that to a commodity very quickly. Because without the right people on board, without having that sense of purpose, and without having leaders on board who can communicate that purpose, and I'm not just talking vice presidents and CEOs, I'm talking all the way down to the team leaders, at the ground level. Everybody needs to be drinking the Kool-Aid and understanding the direction and understanding where we're moving forward. Because if you don't have that, why does somebody want to jump on board? Why does somebody want to, get a ticket on the Titanic knowing that they're going to hit the iceberg?
Yeah.
And people are going to see that iceberg, out there right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, and what's interesting is the example of Grant Cardone hiring, 40 to 50 people in January, only to have to turn around and lay off the majority of them. The positions, the focus of roles is changing as well. I was having a conversation with one of my clients last week, and they were looking to bring somebody else onto their team. And it's a very functional role. It's a very kind of black and white accounting type of a role. And what's interesting is we've shifted the focus from, they need to be able to fill this job description, to these are the competencies and the X factor and the qualities that we need to look for, not the least of which is an ability to learn and pick up things quickly and have an aptitude toward accounting or finance or what have you. But it's just so interesting. The job descriptions, the traditional job descriptions, the progressive companies are throwing them out. And they're saying, we're going to figure out the best division of our labor and who's going to do what after we figure out the right person to bring on the team, the right person with the intangibles, right? That resilience that we've talked about, the ability to adapt, the ability to work in ambiguity, the ability to switch gears and go from showing up at an office 9 to 5 to working from home and still being able to produce, with autonomy. And I think of that in terms of, using the analogy of the NFL draft. It's not just hiring position players anymore. It's about hiring special teams. It's about hiring people who can, and I don't mean to beat that analogy to death, but who could go on offense or defense, who has, enough of a flexible learning mentality that they can say, it's less important to me what my to-do list is that you assign me. It is more important that I believe in you as a company. I believe in where you're going. And in turn, you believe enough in me to do everything you can to support my success.
Yeah, and I think that's a great note to finish on. I think we're going to get into that conversation the next episode, because I think that being able to have the right people on board, doing the right things in the right way, is a huge differentiator and will be for years to come. So, Claire, I think that this has been an amazing episode. I can't wait to listen back to it and find out exactly how brilliant you were. This this is Ben and Claire.
I'm a big football fan, so it's easy.
There we go. There we go. So thanks for being on the episode. This has been Ben and Claire. This is the Creating the New Normal: Leadership in a Post-Pandemic World. We'll see you again soon.